Thank you for the kind introduction, although it might be easier if you just introduced me as a retired doctor. So good morning, everyone. Before I begin, I just want to say thank you to Medic Footprints, for inviting me to speak to you all today. I think Medic Footprints is a fantastic platform for all of us, and I kind of wish that they were around when I was going through my own career struggles. So my name is Izzhar, but please call me Iz, short and sweet, just like my appearance. And I'm going to be talking to you today about my journey to the corporate world. And like any good story, there are a couple of key lessons that I'm looking forward to sharing with you today. And I thought by starting off by showing you this nice little illustration, which I think best describes one of the big problems that we as doctors face. And that is, our view of the outside world is very limited, almost like this little goldfish that you see. So I'm really hoping that by the end of my talk and everyone else's today, at the end of the summit, that you'll stop being like a goldfish and see what else is out there. Because I'm very kiasu, I have to put up this disclaimer, okay? Now, just to manage expectations, whatever that worked for me may or may not work for you. We have to acknowledge that everybody's experience in life, everybody's circumstances, responsibilities, commitments are all different. Furthermore, my idea of success may be very different from yours. Okay, so I just want you guys to bear that in mind. Believe it or not, all these three are okay. That's not me. That's actually my daughter, who looks a lot like me. I just put a filter on it just to make it look like it's a photo of me in my younger days. But like many of you over here, somebody in my family was a doctor. Typical Asian family. Somebody in the family must follow dad's footsteps. That was me, right? I'm sure a lot of you can relate. And you know what? My mother told me when I was 5 years old, my mother gave me the biggest motivation for me to do medicine. And you can read it for yourself, okay? As a 5-year-old, hearing this, I was hell-bent on becoming a doctor. Ain't no way I'm gonna let my mom be like that, right? So I went through the motions. I went through years of superficial studying between, my first and second decades of life. Went through school, college, ended up in St. George's Medical School, part of University of London, and pretty much graduated with no problems. I graduated in 2008, so that's a little over 10 years after Dr. Izzhar. And I was the age of 22 at the time, which is very young to be a doctor. And I already achieved that objective. I already qualified, and I thought, ain't gonna be like that no more, so that's it. I didn't really have an ambition beyond that. Life moved so quickly, I really had no idea what I was gonna do beyond being a medical doctor. So I went through the housemanship program in the UK. It was 2 years, and then it came to a point where I had to apply for specialty training. Now, all my peers knew exactly what they wanted to do, where they were gonna do it. Me, I really had no idea. So around the same time, I decided, okay, let's relocate to Malaysia, because by this time, my dad retired as a GP. So that's where the problems began, okay? Working in Malaysia. So I was a contract medical officer for one of the hospitals here in Malaysia. I was working in the kecemasan department, okay, emergency department. And for 4 months, I went through a very, very difficult time. And I'm sure a lot of you here today probably know what I'm talking about. Whatever you read in the papers, that's all true. There is a toxic environment, at least where I worked in. There were instances of bullying, harassment, you name it. So this kind of pushed me to think, what else is out there? What else could I do, This can't be it. I'm pretty sure it's not just here. I'm pretty sure most other hospitals in the country it's probably like this in Malaysia. I was trying to compare it to the UK. It was very different over there. Over there, as a medical student, I was actually being treated like a valued part of the team. You know, it's very different here. So I already started having doubts whether I wanted to continue. But a turning point happened basically after 4 months. I was called by the medical board. You know, so there were like 3 professors standing, like how I'm standing in front of you, and they're all looking down at me. I was like, I was gonna get read my rights or getting handcuffed, you know. And they basically told me that, oh, you know what, there's a opening for a master's program in Kecemasan. You know, would you be keen? I was very surprised because, you know, I thought I was getting, you know, I was having a difficult time, you know, on the wards. I thought I was just, you know, just struggling. So to actually being given this opportunity was a big of a surprise. But I wasn't sure whether I could commit to this because, you know, do I want to really spend my time like in this really difficult working environment? Plus, you know, I saw diseases that I wasn't used to. For example, dengue. You don't see dengue in the UK. When I saw my first dengue patient, I had no idea what this was. Oh, it's pyrexia of unknown origin. Hey, itu dengue lah, bro. So I needed time. So I was very honest with them. I told them, thank you for the, you know, the offer to do a master's, but I need a little bit more time to adapt. You know, I kind of need to get more experience. Maybe we could revisit this another time. Well, they didn't like that answer. A couple of days later, I got a love letter saying that, oh, you know what, you're terminated. Your services are no longer needed at the hospital. See ya later. And you can see, you know, from this picture in my eyes, that's a picture of a dead man walking right there. I was just a combination of emotions. I felt very, how do I say? I felt like my pride was hurt because, you know, I've never been terminated like that before. But at the same time, I felt relieved because maybe this is the push for me to look for something else out there. But trying to find something else out there was not easy. Medic Footprints wasn't around, so it was so difficult for me to figure out what was I gonna do. And it didn't help that every time, like, you know, I'd see, you know, my aunties and uncles during family events, you know, the typical questions, when are you gonna get married? You know, where are you working? Which hospital are you working? I told them, oh, I tak kerja ke hospital lagi. Doktor tak kerja hospital? Rugi lah. Dah berapa tahun you belajar medicine ni? You know what I mean? So, I don't know whether you guys ever had the experience, but, you know, it was a very difficult place. I was in a dark place, and I couldn't stay like that forever. So I really had to find a way to actually get my career back on track. So I reached out to somebody I knew who was an executive coach, and we sat down many hours trying to figure out what could I do, right? You know, what are my strengths? You know, I really had to dig deep and try to figure out what would be the opportunities that lay ahead. After much sessions, we finally made the decision, okay, you know what? I'm gonna step into the corporate world. And I did this in my late 20s, right? So there was a big time spent on actually figuring this out. And as a low-hanging fruit for a medical doctor, as Dr. Izzhar mentioned, you can join a pharmaceutical company, and you can also join a medical device company. Now, I was terrible at anatomy, I was terrible at surgery, so I was more of a, you know, medical kind of guy. So I joined a pharmaceutical company. But unlike Dr. Izzhar, I did not join a technical sort of medical scientific liaison role because those are the kind of roles that are readily available. I saw myself as a people's person. I like to talk. You know, I'm very outgoing. So I was very interested in marketing or sales, right? And it also helped the fact that I was a creative person. As you saw earlier, I love to play music. So I thought, okay, I'm a creative person, pharmaceutical company, oh, maybe I can do marketing. Because I thought marketing was advertising. I didn't know better. Marketing isn't advertising, by the way. Advertising, just a part of marketing. I think it's a completely different world. But anyway, that's what I thought at the time. And when you think of a pharmaceutical company, you know, you think of like Boehringer Ingelheim, you think of Pfizer, AstraZeneca, those are the ones you're gonna think about these days anyway. But I actually joined a local company. I joined CCM Pharmaceuticals, which is now known as Duo Pharma, and this is Malaysia's largest generic manufacturing company. And the reason why I chose a local company, because I believe that it would give me better opportunities to learn, right? Because you see, from what I understand, a multinational company would teach you things very specific and you'd be very good at what you do. It's almost like a specialist role, right? Whereas if you join a local company, even though there is a job description and you have a job scope, you actually end up doing more than that. And at the time, that's what I needed. I needed to learn as much as I can. So I managed to work not just within the marketing or sales departments, but also with the planning department, operations, regulatory. Everything was there for me to learn. And one of the key successes that I got was out of this was that CCM Pharmaceuticals was part of the P&B group of companies. And every year they would have this competition to actually, demonstrate, which company can show cost savings or, profitability in that sense. So this was us at that time in the bottom right corner, where we actually came up with a solution to save the company millions of dollars because we would always keep going out of stock. And it just shows an example of what happens when you work with different cross-functional departments. There was also opportunity to travel. The picture on the bottom left, was taken in Madrid, where we were in participating in this pharmaceutical congress, with all these other companies around the world. And again, going back to that goldfish analogy, in Malaysia we're like jago kampung, we're like the biggest in Malaysia, yeah. But when you go and see how you are in the rest of the world, you're just a tiny minnow in a big ocean full of sharks, So again, a very eye-opening experience to see what else is out there in the world. But the greatest sense of satisfaction that I got was doing something that really enhanced the quality of people's lives. Actually, that's the motto of the company. I can't believe I still have it in my head. But basically, when you work in a pharmaceutical company, you are increasing the accessibility to medicines for the people. Furthermore, because we're a generic company, we're basically not the innovators. We basically wait till they run out of their patents, and then we make a copy of the drug, which is a lot cheaper, just as safe, just as efficacious. So that increases that accessibility to the public. So we were doing good. Of course, a lot of my peers would be like, "Oh man, cut the crap. You're just a glorified drug dealer." True. As a pharmaceutical company, there is a commercial spin to it, but I did not let that cloud the purpose of being in a pharma company. And this became very evident when I was fortunate to be involved with the company's plans to launch insulin in Malaysia. So for those of you who are in KKM, if you prescribe insulin, I'm pretty sure that the brand of insulin that you prescribe is actually from this company called Biocon, which is distributed by CCM, which is now Duo Pharma. So this was a big initiative because we know that in this country, diabetes is a big problem. Rates of insulinization are low. So for me, it was such a important milestone for us. And it was not easy to convince doctors about using our insulin. Who's Biocon? Who are you guys? You guys in the insulin business. Insulin ain't like tablets and syrups. It's something that you inject. It's a hormone, as you all know. It could be very dangerous if it goes wrong. So there was a lot of marketing efforts we do, and I was also involved with their clinical study, which was a phase 4 study to make sure that things were pretty all right. So it was a great learning experience, and it was in hindsight, it was the best decision I ever made to start off my corporate career working in a company like CCM. So after about 4 years there, I decided, you know what? There's no turning back. I ain't gonna go back to clinical medicine. I wanted to legitimize my business skills. So I did an MBA, which is the Masters of Business Administration. And I did it in Singapore because, well, Singapore is almost seen like the center of the universe. So it was a 1-year full-time program, and I learned a lot. This program also was mandatory for me to do internships. So I was working at Parkway Shenton for a bit, which is the subsidiary of IHH Healthcare, which owns Pantai and Glen Eagles Group. And I was exposed to hospital operations, and it was not really my cup of tea, but at least I, gave it a shot. Not really my thing. And the other thing that I was also exposed to was this thing called Singapore Biodesign Program, where we were paired with engineering students, medical students, to actually develop a medical device to solve real-world clinical problems. So the idea of actually understanding a problem, how to create something, invent something out of nothing, prototype it, and then try to market it was a very eye-opening experience, which I'll use later on. You know, after I did my MBA, and most people who do an MBA, they go into management consulting, they go into finance because those are the kind of companies that pay big bucks. Me, I went to a startup, okay? I went to a startup company called Biomark, which aimed to digitize laboratory results. Again, the purpose behind this company I found very, very attractive and meaningful. You know, we all know here in Malaysia, patients only go see a doctor when something is wrong. They don't take a proactive stance on their health. They don't go for their screening checkups, you know, regularly, right? So I really like what this platform was trying to do, you know, trying to encourage people to do lab tests, make it fun, make it cool. I joined there as the head of business development, but at the time, there was no business to develop. There was not even a product yet. So again, using my experience in the MBA, I started helping develop the product. And one of the great achievements that we did was that our Philippines team, because we had operations there, managed to secure a partnership with a big pharmaceutical company. And we actually became their patient support program where we monitored their patients' blood glucose levels using our app. And as a result of that, we won an award for being the best health tech startup, which is a very, very important milestone for us. But you know what? I couldn't handle the startup life. Being in a startup, you know, you have to be prepared to actually change almost every day. You know, there's always something new to do. Everything was like organized chaos. You know, in the pharmaceutical company, everything was structured. There's a process for doing things. In a startup, everything goes out of the window. Your product might look like this today. Next week, it looks like something else. And there's a lot of traveling involved for me, so I decided to relocate back to Malaysia. And I became the commercial director for Gribbles, which some of you, well, I hope most of you would know. Gribbles Pathology being one of the big laboratories here in Malaysia. And being the commercial director meant I was part of the senior management team, and I was very fortunate for this role because it required a lot of responsibilities. You know, I oversaw the sales and marketing team, which is a total headcount of about 40 people. And again, similar like to the pharmaceutical company, there was a meaning behind it, you know. As a laboratory, we help you guys, doctors, become better doctors. We provide you the information to actually make better judgments for your patients, right? So there was, and you know, we did a lot of things like health screening campaigns for the B40 group in the community, which is very, very fulfilling. And of course, not to mention, I joined in 2019, which is exactly 1 year before COVID happened. Now, we all know that you guys played a very, very important role in the front line when COVID happened. We were in the back room struggling to make sure that those results come out on time. And you know how stressful that was because for a moment there, the laboratory became the gatekeeper of everything. You know, if you want to board a flight, you got to do a PCR test. You know, if you want your workers to start the factory, you got to do a PCR test. So you can imagine it was a very, very stressful period, but it was very, very satisfying. So today, I'm now working for the company that owns Gribbles. It's Pathology Asia. And I have a strategic role as head of new businesses where I work with the senior management team. And here I am today. So enough about me, seriously. You know, I mean, if you didn't pay attention to everything I said earlier on, that's fine because it's not really that important. This part I really need you to pay attention, okay? What did I actually learn throughout the difficult period of my journey? So the first thing I want to share with you is that lesson number one, you got to know who you are. Okay, I know that sounds very basic, right? But you'd be surprised. Take my story, for example. I really was going through the motion like a robot, you know, just trying to get the medical degree and just get out of there. I really didn't have time to figure out, you know, who I was, what I liked to do, what I didn't like to do, etc. And a lot of people do this by doing things like, for example, some people like to eat, pray, love their way around the world. You know, they travel solo and, you know, it's very cliched. You don't have to do that. But if you have the means to do that, please go ahead. Because the idea is to actually do things that you normally do so that you kind of put yourself beyond the boundaries. Some people take part-time jobs, working as Grab, working waitressing, being a waiter. Those are all good stuff because you kind of learn more about yourself as you do those things. But you don't have to do that either. You can just pick up a new hobby. Okay, the idea is just to test yourself so that you discover a lot of things that you didn't know about yourself before. And it's very important to self-reflect along the way. Okay, you have to figure out, why did I enjoy doing that? And then try to see whether I can find a career that matches that. So to explain this, right, I told you that I love making music. You know, I'm a creative person. I like the idea of, you know, creating a song from scratch and then recording it, making it all nice and professional, and then performing it in front of a crowd of 10,000s of people. Okay, not really. I'd be lucky if 10 people this was in the audience. But that process, was very similar to why I enjoyed marketing. You see, as a marketer, I like having great ideas to actually, brainstorm and figure out, hey, what kind of campaign can we do to promote this product? So you brainstorm a little bit, similar to like how you write a song. And then, okay, you know what? It doesn't stop there. You have to actually put it in a professional document. You got to write a proposal. You got to do, a written document to get your signatures from your bosses. So that's like the recording process of music. You got to do it nice. And then after that, you got to, as a marketeer, I got to convince all the sales team to actually do this promotion, to do this campaign. So I got to be speaking to a group of 50 to 100 people and actually get them excited. Hey, you know what? We're going to beat the market by doing this promotion, yeah? So everybody goes, yeah, So that's like performing music to a live audience. So you see what I've just described. I've described the relationship between music and marketing. That happens when you do a lot of self-reflection, and then you get to know yourself a lot better. You guys know who this is, right? You guys know which song it's from? Okay, good, because if you didn't, then I know I'm really that old. So when you know yourself, you are in a better position to make better life decisions for your life. Because why? It's my life. I told you, doing medicine wasn't my life to begin with. It was my mom's, right? And then it came to a point where I suddenly realized I have no ambition, because beyond being a doctor, there was nothing else. So once you actually do know who you are, or get a better idea of who you are, you're able to actually take control of your life and be able to say yes to certain things and no to certain things, right? So for example, when I was trying to figure out what to do after housemanship, all my colleagues were already, applying, for whatever jobs they wanted to do, which hospital. I didn't succumb to peer pressure because I already had a feeling that I knew this is not me. It's very easy to fall into peer pressure, right? If your friends are saying, hey, jom kita buat pediatrics kat hospital, I don't know, Klang. Okay. You just follow. You don't have to do that, okay? And sometimes, I know what you're thinking, sometimes, what happens if I make the wrong decision, correct? Let me tell you something, okay? What may appear as the wrong decision initially will turn out to be the right decision eventually. I'll repeat that again, okay? What may appear to be the wrong decision initially will eventually become the right decision. Okay, I don't know how many of you guys believe in a higher power. I do, but things happen for a reason. See, for example, I always thought that it was a mistake for me to return back to Malaysia. But then, at that time, of course. But now, when I look back, I'm glad I did. Here I am standing in front of you, sharing my message to you, all of you guys. So things happen for a reason, right? So don't be discouraged about making decisions, is what I'm trying to tell you. The third lesson that I learned, right, was that there are so many similarities between business and medicine. You gotta stop looking at medicine as a purely scientific degree. You know why? Because medicine is a management degree. Okay, I'll repeat that again. Stop looking at medicine as a purely scientific degree. It's a management degree. To illustrate this, right? Say a patient comes to see you with chest pain. So what do? Okay, you introduce yourself, you're the doctor, okay, well, Then you take a history, right? You're gonna ask, okay, chest pain. Oh, must remember Socrates, site, onset, character, radiation, associated factors, time, exacerbating factors, severity. You go through all of that. Okay, and then what do? Okay, take family history and all that stuff. Then you examine the patient, right? Okay, you listen to the chest, you prod here, you do your stuff. And then, okay, you may want to order investigations, right? You might want to, do an ECG. You might want to do a blood test at one of our laboratories. And then you should have a working diagnosis already while you wait for the results, right? And then you come back, the results, okay, what is it? Okay, it's not cardiac related, it's GORD, it's reflux disease. Okay, so what do? Okay, you manage the patient, you send them home with omeprazole from CCM. So, but what you've done right there is basically you've problem solved, you've done your analysis of information. Okay, you gathered the information, you did a hypothesis, which is your differential diagnosis, and then you did your management plan for the patient. Business is just the same. So many times, we get reports and we look, hey, sales is behind by 20%. Why, huh? Okay, let me check. Go to the report, you see, yes, sales has dropped in the Klang Valley area. Okay, where in Klang Valley? Is it now clinic customers or pharmacy customers or hospital? Oh, it's in the clinic customers. Okay, which area? Oh, it's in Shah Alam and Klang. Oh, okay. Then you find a list of the list of clinics. Then you speak to your sales team. Hey, why? The sales have dropped. Oh, it's because your pricing is too expensive. Our competitors are cheaper. Okay, so that's your differential diagnosis. Maybe. Let me examine. Let me go down and speak to the customers. So you go speak to the customers. Yeah, doctor says, oh, I stopped using your cough syrup because your cough syrup is orange flavor. We like apple flavor. Your competitors are giving apple. Huh? What about the price? Oh, the price is actually more expensive than yours, but my patients like it. You find out from other clinics as well. Oh, they all say the same thing. So your differential diagnosis is wrong. It was actually a better product, in the eyes of the customer. So what do you do? Okay, so now you have a diagnosis. So what do you do next? Okay, so I gotta actually put a management plan. Okay, so I gotta tell my R&D team, you know what? We gotta change from orange flavor to pineapple flavor, because survey results show that pineapple flavor is in. So, okay, well, you send that off to the R&D department. What am I going to do in the meantime? Oh, I got to do a promotion where I have to retain the loyalty of the customer. Maybe I'll do something like you buy this amount, cough syrup, in the next couple of months, and then, you know what, you get a big discount at the end. I don't know. But the point I'm trying to make, right, is that can you see the similarities between trying to figure out what's the problem, arriving at your hypothesis, and coming up with a management plan? It's the same way of you guys see a patient. So I want you guys to appreciate that they're very much similar in that sense. So, as a result of thinking that medicine is a management degree, you got to look at yourself at what you learned when you were a doctor, right? When you went to medical school, what did you learn? And I'm just generalizing this, right? If you went to medical school and you have a couple of years of experience working on the wards, you should already have this, okay? I'm not going to go through one by one, but you should be able to manage your time, right? You're not seeing one patient at a time, you're seeing so many at a given time. You already know how to triage properly. You already know which patient is critical, which patient is not so urgent, and one patient should not be here. You would know how to manage that. You would also know how to analyze and problem solve, which I described earlier, and your communication skills. This is something that's really underrated, okay? As long as you're working with human beings, whether in business or whatever, you will already have the advantage as a doctor. Okay, you know verbal, nonverbal cues. You know how to break bad news. If a patient gets diagnosed with cancer, you know exactly how to do it. You should know. I'm not saying that you do, but you should. So when it comes to business, these are very, very important skills to have. How am I going to negotiate with this guy? Or this guy is a very difficult guy. Okay, let me try to figure him out. As a doctor, you should have that advantage already, right? So these are what we call the transferable skills that you should have. These are fundamental skills. And you can bring them over in whatever you want to do. So those are skills. What about traits? The qualities of a doctor. And again, I'm just generalizing here. But as a doctor, we all took an oath, right? We all said, we're not going to do any harm because you're responsible for the patient. Doesn't that sound like a lot of responsibility? You're basically being a leader. You're a leader in your own right. You also are accountable. You should be trustworthy, families are trusting their children's lives in your hands. Kind of overwhelming, but look at it that way. Those are the kind of qualities that any kind of business or any kind of company out there really wants. We want people who actually are able to take that responsibility and not tai chi work everywhere they want to do. Right? And as a doctor, we always pay attention to detail, right? Because we want to make sure that 7.5 milligrams is 7.5, not 75. So there's already that level of competency and accuracy that's already ingrained in us. Yeah, we don't complain too much as well. We just suffer in silence also. And the thing is, right, I just want to say that as doctors, we get things done. There's very few professions where you use your brain to think about what's wrong with the patient, right? And you actually do stuff, whether that's suturing someone's head or whether you got to put a line, a chest drain. You're actually doing stuff with your hands. So that's why I always feel that as doctors, right, we actually do stuff, as opposed to other professions. I can tell you in the corporate world, a lot of people know how to talk. They talk, banyak talk, but do they actually do stuff? But doctors, I think we do. So if you guys want to take a picture, or maybe I'll just send it to Malik. But this is a slide that I think is very important. And, hopefully you feel inspired and you beat your chest saying, yeah, because doctors, yeah, we're the best. So now that I've now that I've convinced you, now that I've inspired you to actually, write your resignation letter. Now that I've kind of opened your mind a little bit, what do you want to do next, right? So, shameless plug, but Medic Footprints has an excellent mentorship program, which I am a coach as well. So if any of you guys are interested, please speak to your Medic Footprints representative, and maybe I'll be able to coach some of you guys, okay? So key takeaways I talked about today. Get to know yourself properly. Number 2, make your own decisions. 3, relook at medicine as a management degree. Okay, this is what I want you guys to remember. Last piece of advice, okay? For those of you who are seriously contemplating to join the dark side, look at what else is out there. You really got to understand why you want to leave, okay? Because it's not enough, in my opinion, to leave because toxic environment, bad boss, bad colleagues. Those are all push factors, which I also went through. You have to find a pull factor, something outside that's pulling you in to actually do something out of medicine. Because let me tell you, grass ain't greener on the other side. In the corporate, I wish I could stand here and tell you that the corporate world is rosy, we're all waiting to welcome you, and work with you because you're a doctor. There are a lot of sharks out there, a lot of snakes, a lot of little Napoleons in the corporate world. So rather than trying to find the grass that's greener, a friend of mine told me this: the grass is only green where you water it. Okay? The grass is only green where you water it. So you really got to also make the effort to actually make something out of nothing. So I just want to put you that, because I don't want to, I don't want it to be like later, hey, Dr. Iz told me that, corporate world is great. I'm having a terrible time here. I don't really. Again, I don't manage everyone's expectations, okay? Last parting point. If you do decide that you want to do whatever you want to do, doesn't matter what anybody else is thinking, okay? It doesn't matter what your parents are going to think. It doesn't matter what your friends are going to say. It matters what your spouse is going to say for those of you who are married. It's very important to have his or her support, because otherwise, mana problem, okay? But really, sometimes they just don't understand. Remember that auntie I told you about? The one that I meet and say, hey, sekarang, are you married? Kerja kat mana? So when I joined the pharmaceutical company, I bumped to her, and I was like, she said, oh, Izzhar sekarang kerja kat mana? Oh, saya kerja dekat syarikat pharmaceutical. Kerja kat pharmacy? Doktor kerja kat pharmacy? Ya, rugilah. Tak apa. Ada krim kat? Sebab, auntie punya kulit ni macam gatal sikit. Thank you very much, guys.